Section 4.3, we're going to be talking about in this particular section congruent triangles, and we're going to do some examples with that. Our focus today is example 1. There are 4 of them we're going to cover in our time together. Let's look at some basic information, and I want to start here at the top of your notes where it talks about geometric figures are congruent if they are the same size and shape. Corresponding angles and corresponding sides are in the same position in polygons with an equal number of sides. 2 polygons are congruent if and only if their corresponding angles and sides are congruent. Thus, triangles that are the same size and shape are congruent. And so what I wanted to point out to you in the properties, here I am right here if you're kind of wondering where I am. They color-coded it because they wanted you to see what matches up, okay? You cannot just randomly put on your paper, well, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle FED. That's too random. We have to find, the letters have to match up, okay? So if I write triangle ABC, I just decide that's the pattern I want to follow. Then I have to find, well, where is the angle in the other triangle that has one arc marking it, and that would be right here. So I have to start my second triangle with the D. So if I start my first triangle with the A, the second triangle has to start with D. Now if I follow A with B, then I have to find in the second triangle the angle that has the same measure, the 2 arcs, and that's angle E. So that comes second. And then C has 3, did you notice that? 3 arcs, and F has 3 arcs, and so that's why F comes last. So we have to be really careful when we name these. Now, you don't have to name your triangles that way. You didn't have to do ABC. You could have done triangle CAB. Okay, that's fine. You can do that, but let's look. Angle C has 3 arcs. Look to the other triangle. Then we would write F first. Okay, A came second. That only has 1 arc, so D comes next. And then that means if B is last in the first triangle with 2 arcs, then E is last as well. Okay, so there's ways to around it. You're not locked into a certain way, but they have to align. They do have to align. One triangle has to align with the other one. Their corresponding angles and sides have to align. Okay, so I've already talked to you about the angles here. Angle A has 1 arc, as does angle D, so they're congruent. Angle B has 2 arcs, and so does angle E. And angle C has 3 arcs, and so does angle F. So I think that's pretty simple. I think you guys can see that. The sides are also corresponding. AB has 1 tick mark, and DE has 1 tick mark. Notice that they didn't write ED. They did DE to follow the pattern. A it starts with the 1 arc and goes to 2 arcs. See here? A goes from 1 arc to 2 arcs, so we have to do the same thing. 1 arc to 2 arcs, so that's DE. Do you see the nuance in that and why you need to pay attention when you're writing these? BC, B goes from 2 arcs to 3 arcs, so we have to do the same thing here. We have to go from 2 arcs to 3 arcs, so that's EF. And then AC goes from 1 arc to 3 arcs. So we have to do the same thing here. We have to go 1 to 3. That's DF. And that's why they wrote them like they did. Okay? So same thing with the polygons. They've color-coded them for your convenience. They're not color-coded in your notes. Your notes are black and white and gray. But on the video, they're color-coded so you can kind of follow track and follow suit with it and see how this works. Okay? So this is laying on its side. If we kind of turned it back up so that ZY is on the bottom, then it would be standing up like this one here. okay? And so it's really important that we're able to write these polygons and see where their corresponding angles are, etc., and so forth. Now here at the bottom, I wanted to point this out to you. To name a polygon, you need to write the vertices in consecutive order, okay? In a triangle, you have no choice. But in a polygon, you don't want to skip a vertex. You don't want to write P, R, Q, S. That's out of order. They need to be consecutive. So you could write it as P, Q, R, S. You could write it as S, P, Q, R. You could write it as R, S, P, Q. You could write it as Q, P, S, R. As long as they are consecutive and you're not skipping it around, it doesn't really matter the order of the letters. They have to be consecutive order. Underline that for me, okay? Consecutive order. Do not skip. Do not skip. Okay. Flip your page. Let's look at our example together. Name the congruent corresponding parts of triangle RST and triangle XYZ represent the triangles of the space station support structure. If triangle RST is congruent to triangle XYZ, identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. Now, if you would like to color code, I'm going to change to a highlighter, and I'll stick with yellow since that's the color that's there. Notice, let's see here, R is in the first position, as is X. So I'm going to highlight R and X in yellow, because positionally, as it was written in the congruent statement here, RST, XYZ, they are telling us from that statement that R and X align, okay? So let's switch colors. Let's go to this green color. Now, let's go to the middle one here, S and Y, okay? So S and Y, all right? So those are going to align. And then our last ones, let me see here. Let me pick a good color here. Oh, come on. Where's the pink? All right, we'll go pink. That works. Okay. So pink, pink, T and Z go together. So T and Z. Okay. So that works. Let me get back to my pen here. That's going to be really easy for you while you're doing your angles and showing your congruent angle pairs. So let's start with the angles. Let's make like a little chart here. And so we know that angle R is going to be congruent with angle X. They're both yellow. They're both first position. Okay. Angle S is congruent to angle Y, and angle T is congruent to angle Z. Okay, good job. Those are the angles. Now sides are a little bit trickier in general, so what we may want to do is maybe do some of the arcs like we did in the first one. So I'm going to put one arc for R and X. I'm going to do 2 arcs for Z and T, and I'll do 3 arcs for these 3, for the S and the Y. That's fine. That works. Okay? So what we want to do is let's start with the RST triangle, and let's go from 1 arc here to 2 arcs. So that's RT. So RT is going to be congruent to, and then we're going to do the same thing in the second triangle, go from 1 arc to 2 arcs. That's XZ. Good job. Okay, now let's do 2 to 3. So let's do TS is congruent to ZY. That looks great. Okay, and then let's do 3 to 1. So SR is congruent, and we'll do 3 to 1 to Y. YX. Okay, I was consistent. Now, did I do it just like your textbook? No, but I was consistent. I did a really good job in keeping up with, you know, making sure that the order I put the first pair of letters is the same order that the second pair are in. So I know I did a really good job. Okay, now what you're going to have to do, you may have to draw both polygons. Okay. And if you need to color code, go ahead. They don't have them drawn for you. So you'll need to draw polygon LMNP and polygon EFGH. And you're going to do the same thing. Give me the congruent angles, and you're going to have 4 pairs. And then you're going to do the congruent sides. Okay? So it's a 4-sided figure, so you can go ahead and do rectangles if that would be easier for you. Go ahead and do that. But that's where I would start, and I'll give you a +1 for this one, okay? So just do the best you can, and if you have some questions, bring those to class tomorrow.